Chilling in the hot tub, 5 feet apart, because they're not. What was that? Oh, that's some nice fucking art. Oh, what is it? Who is this cutie? Oh, I like your short shorts. Who are you? Oh, well, I wasn't expecting to see Shockwave. Where is this from? A smattering of what I'll be hauling to trade give out at TFCon. Oh, that makes sense. God, I wish I could go. God, I really like those, you know what, Shockwave in like a little suit and tie. That's a very cute little sticker. I want that. God damn it. Where's TFCon? I need to know where this is. Hang on. Give me a second. I'm going down a rabbit hole. Where is this? Since it's in Baltimore, Maryland. Wait, what? Ontario? No, what? Give me a second. Where the fuck is this? TFCon Toronto? When is this? July 11th. What the fuck is today? What? I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Oh no. Oh no. I spent too much money the last 2 days. Oh no. No, 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 no. Oh, fuck me.
I went to TFCon. This is not an in-depth analysis or essay. This is not me exposing the nefarious goings-on of the convention's inner workings. This is not some story time where I reveal a traumatic event. I just went to a nerd convention and want to yap about it. So let's yap about it. Hi-ho, hello! What's the dealio? I like robots, but I get bored of the typical narratives of, oh, robots are evil and they took over humanity and the humans are the good guys, so let's rise up and overthrow the evil AIs because technology is evil or something. Like, at this point, it's a little too close to reality, and, gonna be so for real, I get kind of annoyed at these narratives' absolute refusal to acknowledge that these AIs were built by people, and that a good chunk of the problems had with them are the result of human error, or literally programming them to do bad things. It's annoying, alright? It's like teaching a kid that stealing is great and they should do it all the time, and then punishing them when they steal from you. So what better hyperfixation for my brain to focus on than a narrative about robots that turn into vehicles to hide themselves among humans because they're not that great, who prompt philosophical discussions in the midst of giant space battles. Throw in a little religious absolutism, techno-gods, PTSD, war crimes, morally dubious characters, government-sanctioned lobotomies, the maintenance of societal order by means of mutilating those who step out of line, more mad scientists than I can shake a stick at, and one heapin' helpin' of a giant robot dad who simply can't resist the allure of death. And that's something I can get on board with. Outside of VidCon, which I guess technically doesn't really count as a nerd convention, it's been a few years since I've been to one proper. Pretty sure the last one was MomoCon back in 2019, and before that, I couldn't even begin to tell you. I used to frequent Fan Expo fairly regularly, and I'd been to the local Comic-Con like once. Actually, no, wait, I can't. I have pictures on my computer. My folders say my last Fan Expo was in 2014. Wait! Nope! I went to TCAF for the Pink Cat video. I almost forgot about that one. What you need to know about me is that despite my social aversions and general fear of everything, I do like conventions. It's one of the few instances where I feel comfortable coming out of my shell. Sure, it might take me 5 minutes to work up the courage to ask one of the staff members where the panel I want to go to is located, but I eventually managed to do it. That's progress, right? Needless to say, I was rusty. At either bigger cons or cons that I'm more used to, I put a lot of planning into my itinerary. I look up the panels beforehand and circle all the ones that interest me, usually in different colors based on a level of interest or the viability of the practical knowledge I could gain from said panels. I plan out gaps in my schedule to explore the general vendor floor and the artist alley. I study the floor map to determine the best possible routes when doing so. More recently, I've become a rabid note-taker and will usually check with friends to see if there's anything they want, whether that be information from the panels or pieces that they want me to keep an eye out for. The one thing I'm not particularly good at is budgeting and weight distribution, which is a fancy way of saying that I buy way too much stuff at conventions and I am not strong enough to carry it all comfortably. The problem is that I learned that TFCon was happening literally the day before it started. Another problem, I 100% planned to film at least a little bit of this convention on my phone. Certainly, I planned to film a little bit of the Artist Alley, and I completely forgot to do any of that, which is why the footage for this video is what it is. Blame the anxiety brain. I think at any point where I wasn't safely nestled in a panel, it was just screaming at me. So, I found out about TFCon happening on July 10th. The convention was from the 11th to the 13th. I bought my ticket for the 12th. Yes, I only went for one day. On such short notice, and given that I'd already spent a couple days hanging out with Fiona Paulo, and I'd have to organize travel to the convention and care for my dog for those days, that was all I could really justify for myself. The convention was hosted at a Hilton hotel, admittedly pretty far away from where I live, but we made it work. Demona got a long car ride, and she always likes those, so that's always a plus. I spent, unsurprisingly, 5 minutes trying to work up the courage to ask where the registration was located, took a picture of the map of the convention layout whilst getting my wristband because I knew I was going to forget it after looking away for 2 seconds, and headed off. First up was the 11 a.m. panel, History of the GoBots. Told you, I am simply more comfortable in panels. And also, Artist Alley wasn't open to the people with my access level yet, which I didn't think was going to be a problem, but you could probably argue it was. This one was fun. I wasn't super versed on the GoBots, and the panel made me want to check out the show, so that's something. I liked the animation of the clips that they showed. Not sure exactly when I'll get around to it, but it's on my list. I also dipped into the washroom for a moment after this panel because I needed some anxiety cooldown time, and as I was leaving, a cosplayer entered and immediately threw up. I'm not talking by the toilets, I'm talking the floor in front of the entryway. I was so thankful that they turned to the side and just narrowly missed me as we crossed paths. Count yourselves lucky, you narrowly avoided the clickbait title of I got puked on at a Transformers convention, because you know that if it had happened, it would have made for a hilarious story. I wouldn't have been happy about it at the time, but hindsight does magical things. I hope that cosplayer was okay. I initially wanted to stop and help out, but I know that technically, depending on the venue, you're not actually allowed to do that in some cases, and I figured that throwing up in view of a stranger was probably already stressful enough. They had their mum with them, so I assume they were in good hands. The next panel on my list I had marked down as a maybe, because I wasn't entirely sure that it would be something I'd be interested in, and also because I'd slotted the same time as a good opportunity to check out the Artist Alley, since it opened to the general convention goers at noon. Something else that you should know about me is that the Artist Alley is arguably my favorite part of conventions. As much as I enjoy panels, I especially love looking at all of the amazing artwork on display. When I'd gone to the registration earlier, the Artist Alley had already looked pretty packed. So it became a matter of, if I don't check out the art that they have available now, they might be sold out of a lot of stuff by the time I finally get around to it. As it turns out, bowing out of the panel and heading over to the artists was absolutely the right call, because a couple of the booths were already sold out of some prints, and I wasn't just buying for myself. I had actually asked Clown Teeth and Mally Malware if they wanted me to pick up anything for them too, so I was on the hunt for Megatron, Starscream, and Soundwave pieces on top of my own character preferences. This one table I approached had a bunch of little postcard-sized prints, which I am only now realizing don't have their name on them, and I didn't think to ask, and I didn't get a business card. I bought 5 prints from this artist. I need to know who they are. Anyway, I think not only did I buy the last of their Perceptor and Breakdown and Knockout prints, they were also running out of Ratchets, they were definitely already out of some prints because of the empty spaces, and I spotted a Transformers Prime Soundwave on their booth display that wasn't available with the rest of the prints. When I asked if they had any of them left, they literally plucked the display one off and just handed it to me. If I had gone into Artist Alley any later, all of these lovely prints would have been gone. Look at them. They're very nice prints. I also got Black Arachnia, she's very pretty. Someone please tell me who this artist is so I can follow them. I promise if I go another year, I'll write it on my hand to remember to record the booths and ask for names. Actually, yeah, if I don't tell you who the artist is, assume that I don't know, and please tell me if you do. Tips for Artist Alley artists. If you don't sign the artwork itself, always sign the back of the print. I know that sometimes people like to give out cards, but they can very easily easily get lost or mixed up with other cards from other artists, and if your socials don't showcase the exact pieces that the convention attendees bought from you, it can be difficult to figure out what was created by whom. Not to mention, there are a variety of different art socials that artists use, and potential followers do not always use those same websites. Like, how many of you have a Kara account? I don't know if everyone is like me, but if you only have an Instagram, I'm not gonna follow you because I bleed and hate Instagram. So if you're simply banking on them typing your name into Google off of your business card, that might not always happen. You should provide other ways for customers to be able to remember what you draw and who you are. A trick that I find to be really useful is to make a custom stamp. You can stamp the back of every single one of your prints. It's a big white space, basically an empty canvas. You can do whatever you want with it. That way buyers always know what came from you. Back on track. I'm also gonna blame my not thinking to ask people their names on my crowd anxiety because, oh boy, there was a crowd. The artist alley was relegated to a pretty small room comparatively, like literally the smallest artist alley I've ever been to. If I'm counting correctly, there were 1, 2, 3, 7, 14, maybe 16 vendors total. I might be overestimating that number. There were more artists at the convention, but this was just the artist alley. So I circled the room twice, once to grab anything that stood out to me immediately, which would have been the prints I just mentioned, a set of 5 stickers from an artist whom I have also misplaced the name of. Here they are, please inform me of who he is, as well as a Shockwave and Grimlock print and the art book from TeyowiSonte Thomas Deere. I definitely mispronounced that. There was actually a funny interaction as I was circling where one of the booth vendors was kind of standing away from the booth and trying to guide people into directing their attention towards it. He approaches me and asks something like, "Oh, how are you faring in the convention?" And because I'm a bit of a blabbermouth when I'm in this state, I kind of just blurted out, "Not enjoying the crowds." And he was just like, "Yeah, I can see that. Can't really help you there. Good luck." And then he let me go on my way. That was really nice of him. I always worry about convention grifters taking advantage of me when I'm in this state to push a buy on me that I'm too anxious to refuse. That was cool. Appreciated that immensely, even if I didn't end up buying anything from his booth. Had I gone in a second day and had more money to spend, I probably would have, because that was really nice. I appreciate when vendors are considerate of us little anxiety gremlins. Second go around and I checked out the booth run by Joan Chung, bought a little Transformers 1 zine that they had made. Zine? And a bunch of stickers because I love stickers! Check it out, they even had a little Conti from Fooly Cooley. And look, I remember their name because they signed their art book. Everybody please do this, it makes my life a zillion times easier. Of course, I had to pick up some beautiful Fail Scream stickers for Mally and Clown. I also picked up this lovely piece of Soundwave's hips and this animated Megatron that I 100% cannot show you in this video. I know it doesn't technically show anything, but like, it's suggestive enough, and I can't deny it's kinky, so I'm just gonna play it safe. I'm gonna be so for real, I was not expecting to find Megatron tied up with ropes on display at what I thought was going to be a family-friendly convention, but it's unhinged enough that I had to pick it up for my girlies. I only bought one, so I'll let them fight to the death over it. The last booth I went to had a bunch of decals that I was very tempted to get, especially this cute one of Bulbasaur with a boba tea and Guilmon eating bread, but I ultimately opted to get a pin instead because I've never seen a pin of Metabee at a convention before and I wanted it so badly. Look at him. He is my baby, precious chaos gremlin. First ever Robo Crush. I also bought stickers because of course I did. The artist was actually apparently using the Superior Spider-Man sticker I got as like, I don't know, a way of identifying nerds who actually read the comic material. And for as much as I may have had some issues with that arc, I enjoyed Superior Spider-Man, so I had to get it. Oh, I also got this little Cthulhu sticker and Shockwave. I'm sorry for having a great chassis and correct opinion stickers because it's me and I'm nothing if not predictable. Okay, that's like 37 minutes eaten up and I'm desperate to get out of this crowd. By the time I made it back to the panel room, because there was only one, I still had about 20 minutes to kill. panel. So I just sat outside the room and took pictures of the unhinged prints that I bought for Clown and Mally to get the girlies foaming at the mouth. Because that's what friends do. I also opened up a new notepad file and started jotting down ideas because this convention got me so hecking inspired. Like, I've been having a bit of an art block lately, and this convention pulled a Fonzie on me and elbow checked my brain back into high gear. I have a list of things to draw. You will be subjected to them in the coming months, and no, I do not apologize for it. Next panel was a Q&A with MsFaerieArts, the voice of Nightshade from Earthspark, whom I will mention in a different video that I was actually working on before this convention, Evan Michael Lee, who voiced Jazz in Transformers 1, and Tanya Gunadi, who voiced Miko Nakadai from Transformers Prime. Fun panel, don't have much to say about it, but I actually took pictures of this one. Once the panel was over, I did not have to move from my seat because the Transformers costume showcase happened immediately after. Remember, all the panels happened in the same room. Pretty convenient, all things considered. Also meant that I didn't have to pick and choose between panels, which is usually a thing I'm forced to do at conventions. I took a couple pictures of the costumes that I liked. I especially thought the rigs were neat. While I didn't get a shot of it, there was one rig cosplayer who made their own original character. I think their name was Vaporwave, and they actually transformed into a car. That was cool. I'm probably totally misreading the intended model, but it reminded me of a DeLorean. Actually, no, wait, I'm forgetting. I did move from my seat because during the Q&A, one guy went up and mentioned that he was an aspiring voice actor. So between panels, I scribbled in my sketchbook saying that I knew some YouTubers who might be looking for voice work if he was interested, ran over to him, and gave him my contact info. See? I did, like, networking and shit. I'm getting the hang of it. Slowly. Aren't you proud of me? So since I hadn't been in the best of seats for the costume showcase, and because I realized, much to my chagrin, that I'd been caught on camera during that panel, the heckin' horror, I moved seats. No joke, I was in this room for 4 hours. Next up, we had another Q&A, this time with Bumper Robinson, who I mostly knew as Bumblebee, Wasp, and Blitzwing from Transformers Animated. Wait, no, why did I say that? Bumper Robinson did not voice Wasp, Tom Kenny voiced Wasp. What the heck is the matter with me? Michael Dobson, who's been in Transformers Armada, Energon, and Cybertron, and Neil Ross of, like, old school G1 fame. Seriously, he voiced like 12 characters in that show. That was an especially funny panel. Took a pic. After that was the third-party product showcase, which was a panel I was a little torn on if I would attend. I sort of misunderstood what I thought it was going to be about. Somehow I'd gotten it into my head that it was going to be similar to a showcasing of, for lack of a more concise term, badly made knockoff toys. It was not that. It was showcasing upcoming toy models, which I found myself much more interested in than I expected to be. Because while I'm not an avid collector of the toys, I do really like the images of the prototypes and some of the more expensive models that I can't really financially justify sinking money into. They were, gorgeous, to say the least. I took pictures. However, this panel also featured my least favorite part of this convention outside of being caught on camera and my general anxiety disorder problems, and that was the guy sitting 2 seats over and 1 row in front of me. Pro tip: if you think you're being a funny guy, constantly chiming in with jokes, quips, and one-liners loud enough for the entire panel to hear, and every single time you speak up, not only does absolutely nobody laugh, but it's immediately followed up by an awkward silence and sometimes even exasperated sighs from the people behind you, you are not being a funny guy. You are just being disruptive and annoying, and nobody wants to be the one to speak up and tell you. Seriously, if after the 7th attempt you are still not getting a reaction, just stop. You do not need to extend it further than that. You know how they say 3rd time's the charm? This guy seemed to think it was 42. Basically, nobody likes comedy show hecklers. This was somehow worse. I don't remember any of the specific things that he said, mostly because I was trying really hard to tune him out, but that became so much harder once the guy who was initially sitting beside me moved, and for some reason, Mr. Funny Man decided to move back a row and take his seat. He was in the front row, and he moved back to sit right next to me. Why must you do this? I am not laughing at your jokes. Closer proximity is not going to change that. Whatever. The panel ended, and thank Primus, I never had to hear Funny McFunster again. Since the last panel was a Q&A with the Cybertronic Spree, who I don't listen to, I finally got to stand up and stretch my legs. Now, something you should know, among all of the other something that you should knows that I've mentioned at this point, I have been actively avoiding the dealer's hall up until this point, partially as a result of my anxiety, also partially because of imposter syndrome and the overwhelming dread that someone's going to point to me and bring attention to everyone that I don't belong. What can I say? Anxiety does weird things to the brain. It's mostly just catastrophizing and hyper-focusing on the worst possible outcomes for any decision I even think of making. Since the dealer's room and artist alley closed at 6 and it was 5, I only really had an hour left to check things out, and given that I wasn't coming back to the convention for Sunday, this was kind of the only opportunity that I would have to get past that anxiety. So off I went, my brain screaming at me every single step of the way. The dealer's hall was a lot bigger than what I expected it to be, and there were more artists, both in the main room and outside in the hallway. This is where I bought 3 prints from Khanna, a group shot of the Predacons, Tarantulas, and, of course, another shockwave. Scrolling through the prints that they had available was actually really funny, because all the while I was doing it, I knew that they had their eyes on me to see if I was gonna buy anything, and okay, because I know most of you guys haven't seen me in person, I may have what people refer to as a resting bitch face, but I'm also shockingly expressive. Like, my face lacks a filter. You will see my facial expression change to a hilarious degree if you tell me a funny story. I've literally had friends say that they love telling me things specifically because of how expressive I am. I also tend to default into a friendly smile when I'm super anxious, but that's neither here nor there. So as I'm scrolling through the prints, my eyes noticeably got wider when I saw the Tarantulas print, because it was the first one I'd come across throughout the whole convention. And all I could think while this was happening is, they 100% know I'm about to shill money for this print. I do not have a poker face, not when it comes to my mad scientists. So that was funny. I didn't originally think that I was gonna buy anything, but finding those prints, I think, sort of broke the dam open. So I ended up also buying a Cyberverse, say it with me people, Shockwave, because I think his bug tank design from that show is really heckin' cool. Also adorable. I like bug bots. I almost caved and bought a $110 Tarantulas, but it was one of the early orange and white versions of the toy model, and I don't actually like that one as much as I like the green and purple that they settled on for the show. Like I said, I'm not a super avid collector. Beyond those two, I don't actually remember much else from the dealer's hall because my heart was practically beating out of my chest at this point. I don't really know what my body language is telling people when I'm in this state, but I can only guess that I look like a deer in headlights, just absolutely terrified and ready to get punted into a tree at any given moment. As soon as I broke out from the dealer's hall, I had to go hug a wall for a few minutes to recenter myself, and in doing so, I somehow managed to work up the courage to approach the voice actor booths. I don't know how I did it, but I did it! Tanya Gennady was no longer at her table. I don't know if she'd left early or what, so she wasn't really an option. And Evan Michael Lee and Bumper Robinson's tables were a little too crowded for my anxious self, but Z and Fonte was so welcoming. They definitely saw me hovering around the edges looking for an opportunity to approach, and they just said hi, which was like a nice little opening for me. They were very sweet. It was a fun little interaction. They introduced themselves as Z, asked my name, I said it was B, we had a little laugh about that. They asked how I liked Earthspark. I confess that I didn't really like the second season, but I loved Nightshade as a character, and that I was particularly appreciative that the show had decided to represent 2 different types of intellect through the green and purple color characterization when approaching the quote-unquote smart characters. Z asked what I was talking about. I explained that, you know, Nightshade and Hashtag are both smart characters in the show, but Hashtag deals in software, where Nightshade deals in hardware. Hashtag learns how to navigate foreign machines and systems, while Nightshade builds machines, but may not necessarily be able to operate ones that they didn't have a hand in making. Apparently, Z enjoyed that interpretation of the characters, saying that they hadn't considered it that way before, and that they wanted to explore my brain, to which I assured them, no you don't, it's a mess. And like, I know technically when you're interacting with actors, when they're doing a job, part of that job is making fans feel seen because that's how you sell autographs. And my brain is telling me that they were probably just being nice and probably wouldn't think twice about the conversation. But I did appreciate it. They were very friendly. I think they picked up on the fact that I was incredibly anxious, and I'm hoping that by recording it here, I can, remember it for years to come. It was nice. Anyways, I got their autograph. It worked. Since I had now spoken to someone for more than 12 seconds, and in a capacity that was not simply, let me buy your art please, I was officially done with the dealer's hall. My anxiety could not take it anymore. I legitimately felt like I was about to keel over. Something that I didn't mention that I probably should have, most of the other conventions I've gone to in the past have been with friends. This was like the second convention I'd ever been to completely alone. And it was the first one I'd been to since I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. Normally, I'd sort of quell my anxiety by bouncing my energy off of friends. Can't really do that when you're on your own outside of just Discord messages, so I was mostly just cooking up myself a batch of good old anxiety stew all day and then simmering in it. Before I left, I decided to take one last look in the artist alley, and gotta admit, I'm glad that I did. I grabbed this funny Skybite poster. Please tell me the name of the artist. I can't read this signature. This whirl print from Erika G Skerzz, which I absolutely love the biblical iconography reference for. I believe a couple of stickers from MsFaerieArts, these two prints of Hobie Brown because I couldn't decide between them, and this adorable little postcard of Cyclonus and Tailgate from PPYRAMS. Thank you for signing your full handle on your print. You are amazing. More people need to do this. I would also like to issue a formal complaint. I did not see any appealing art of Wheeljack. I will go so far as to say that I don't remember seeing any art of Wheeljack at the time, which, in fairness, could be on me, but I'm still mad about it. Give me my ADHD mad scientist thank you, specifically Cyberverse, because I love that design for some reason.
I have some ideas!
Finally spent for the day, and with the dealer's hall closing, Whirl was my last print of the con. So I guess, in a sense, I went out with a bang. Shut up, that was funny. All in all, even if I didn't get to go a second day, which I was really tempted to do, it was a fun convention. Probably good that it was so small given how anxious I was. While I was waiting for my ride, I spent a little time just doodling in my sketchbook, so that certainly helped calm me down. Demona was also waiting for me once I got out to the car, and she always fixes me right up. So that was my first foray into TFCon Toronto. Would I go to another Transformers convention? Yes, absolutely, 100%. I would. Gonna be so for real? Kinda want my green and purple tarantulas, if only because this stupid bot is a hassle and a half to draw, and I need a physical reference. I'm not sure how to end this off. Like I said, I have a list. You will be subjected to this art at some point. I know that I don't draw Transformers stuff super often, mostly because I don't have much confidence in my ability to do so, but I'm getting better. My sketchbooks are being absolutely abused with bots. I christened my Kara account with a redraw from the Skybound comics. Hope you enjoyed the art footage of Tarantulas slurping out Cheetor's liquefied brains. This was one of the pieces I came up with at the convention, and I thought it was really funny. Do you have a twisted sense of humor and find it to be equally funny? Let me know. Also, how many Transformers fans do I have in my audience? Please let me know. I don't normally engage in fandom spaces, but I am curious. In the meantime, thank you for sticking with me while I yap. I hope that I served as a decent voice to fill in the space while you work on art or video games, and know that no matter how much progress you've made on that big old project you're working on, I'm proud of you for getting yourself to sit down and work on it. No fan art feature today because I'm trying to get this video out quickly, but I did want to sign off with one piece because not only is it hyperfixation appropriate, it's freaking hilarious. May I present to you this piece drawn by Nami The Slime of me flirting with Shockwave. Hey, what's a monoocular bot like you doing in a place like this? I like your purple chest. I love how accurate this is. Thank you, Nami. You legitimately made my day. One more thing before I go. A few of you may be aware that I was having some issues with the fan art feature email a while ago. Well, I had another issue in that apparently a good chunk of art was being relegated into the junk folder and then not being seen. And then when I was locked out of the account, all of that stuff would have been deleted. So if you're worried at all that your fan art email maybe didn't go through, you can always resend it. Duplicates are fine. I can sort through them. It's fine. Just resend it. It's just, I'm worried that people have sent their fan art and it got deleted and I didn't know, and I would feel so hecking bad if that were the case. So, the Nami the Slime piece specifically I found in my junk folder, so just be aware. You know, just to let you know, that was a thing. Thank you for your time. How do I end that? With that, draw bots, enjoy your hyperfixations, don't be like me and spend entirely too much money at a convention, and check your posture, you little shrampies. Bye-bye!